yeah, before we start, I just want to say that when I was presenting this talk to my mom, and by the way, she's totally not into software engineering or Scala at all, she just put a comment that that's the worst stand-up show she has ever seen, and she watches them quite a lot. So, yeah. Can I get a little applause, because I'm not sure if after the talk I will get one. All right. All right, so who am I? Just a short introduction of myself. I started using Scala 3 years ago, so I might be the worst Scala developer here, and probably I'm the least experienced. But yeah, you have to start somewhere. Yeah, I'm a beginner in mind, so I always try to approach new topics as I was a new person who was just introduced to some library or project. I'm a bit selfish because I did this talk for myself, because I really wanted to, put my thoughts together about ZIO Test, and I wanted, to dive deeper into the ZIO Test code. So actually, this is the actual reason. I'm also a poet at heart. I always try to, express the way I write code quite clearly. And believe me or not, with ZIO Test, it is definitely possible, thanks to its rich DSL that we will discover later on. Also, I'm a first-time speaker. I have zero experience in public speaking, so please forgive me all the mistakes and everything I'll do wrong, and probably I'll do wrong lots of things, so yeah, please forgive me. Okay, small disclaimer. The level of this talk is entry level, or even below that, and the reason for that, I think ZIO Test is a great project, and this is what Aiden mentioned yesterday on the keynote, that this is the project where you can start right away, and there is not many things like, hey, let's write a ZIO test, let's write assertion using ZIO Test, but let me tell you about this. So, and I think it also fits well into the picture that James painted yesterday with his words that we need a great developer experience, and I believe that ZIO Test is such a project. Yeah, don't mind any jokes that I have put there. I know that they don't play well. All right, let's crack on. So you can still leave the room if you're not interested. There are a few things that I will not talk about. I will not talk about what are unit tests, what is ZIO at all, what is an effect or effectful system, why you should have unit tests in your project, or why should you bother, and all the stuff. But I will try to talk about a few other things. How to start with ZIO Test, how you can use ZIO Test in your project, how to test effects and effectful code with ZIO Test, and how to use property-based testing, and also how you, your team, and your company can benefit from having ZIO Test in your ecosystem. Someone can ask, why should we even have another testing framework? We have Scala Test, we have Specs 2, we have all the stuff. But there are a few problems with those libraries. Things like leaking resources and not properly acquiring or releasing resource that you use. Concurrency issues with those tests. Dependencies on other services. Supporting multiple versions or platforms in your test is a struggle. And most often, our test frameworks does not have a clue about effects. They know about values like booleans, strings, integers, all the stuff. At its best, they know about features, but we all know here, I believe, that why features are not the best effect types. But we have already solved all these problems with our effectful systems. So we have systems that are referentially transparent, that can guarantee resource safety, that have some environment types, and know how to handle interruptibility. So basically, I, according to the logic, I believe that if you don't know ZIO or ZIO Test, these are two books that you should read, because ZIO Test or ZIO should be in one or another. Yeah, but let's start. So all you have to do, no matter what language you use, or whether your main code or your service uses ZIO, Monix, or any other IO monad provider, you have to just import those two library dependencies to your project. But yeah, I believe that I promised you that we will start with something simple, and this will be like the introduction talk into ZIO Test. So yeah, believe me or not, you don't have to know what it means. Those type constraints are not very important to write your first test with ZIO Test. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so let's write our first test with ZIO Test project. So all we have to do is to create the object that will extend default runnable spec. We then override the spec with our top-level suite. Then we define our test case. We execute some code, and we make the assertion. So in the first parentheses, we provide the result that we want to assert against, and in the second one, using rich DSL, we can define what kind of assertion we want to execute. Okay, so we have just created our first test, but in our real code bases, we often have to deal with things like effects and other stuff. And obviously, if in your test code you have you run your features, you might not avoid subtle bugs. Like you have created a test where you have described something, but you forget to run it. Or obviously, it pollutes your test with all the unnecessary things. And obviously, if we run those effects features in that particular example, we lose lots of power that we want to have, because we want to, at the end of the day, we want to use the ZIO or functional programming, or we want to use monads and all that stuff. So in ZIO Test, we can handle this pretty well, because all we have to do is to define this test m method that takes a label. In this example, we have a stream that takes 3 elements and collects them, and just after that, we can assert whether it is equal to some expected values. All right, what if we need some environment? So for those of you who are into ZIO, the app is of the type ZIO from random, because it needs random as its environment, nothing because it cannot fail, and int because it returns the integer. So in ZIO we have mock random, for example, that can provide us this that we can use as the environment, and it will provide us some values. Obviously, in ZIO Test, we have other test services, like, for example, test console that will not print anything to the console, but will keep those values in a buffer. Or we have, for example, test clock that will help us control time passage in our tests. What if we want to use some resources? So all we have to do is we have to define the Z layer, which is basically the definition of how we handle our resource. It might be some SQL connection, it might be some Kafka, it might be whatever. And yeah, we start all over again. We define our suite, we define our effective test, and we just provide the custom layer with the layer that we have just created. All right. So what if you want to use some shared resources, because some resources are cheaper, the other ones are more expensive? Yeah, it's possible. We basically do the same, but this time after we create our suite, we put this on the spec level. So all each test case will be for each test case it will be possible to basically use this resource that we have provided. And from ZIO 2.0, it's also possible to define the layer, the resource that will be shared across different specs. We know that there are some organizations that have some specs in different files, because the resource the resource is so expensive that we don't want to recreate this resource for each spec separately, so it's also possible with ZIO Test. Okay, what if we want some generators? We want some code to be generated for us. All we have to do is to import those 3 packages, and yeah, it works out of the box with ZIO Test. But most often we use generators for property-based testing. In ZIO Test, this works out of the box again. We just provide some check, which will take the generator and will make the assertion on top of that. Obviously, we might check, for example, identity function. So we want to have some JSON. We want to decode this, encode the JSON, and we want to check if this is the same for different values, or we can do this the same with the event or any other structure. Yeah, aspects. I've showed you the aspect code, but it's not what we will talk about. So you can think of the aspects as they are like tiny little features, like small traits that seamlessly allow you to run your to help you run your test. So ZIO, for example, provides non-flaky, then that allows you to run by default your test 100 times, or flaky that runs your test till they are passing. Timeout, if you want to time out after a certain amount of time, if you want to ignore or you want to tag your test that this test is only that should only run on JVM. Because, for example, Scala.js handles certain things differently, so yeah, it's possible. Or after another aspect that allows you to execute some effect after your tests are done. Yep, obviously those aspects are highly composable, and you can use you can chain them together if you want to join them, and you obviously can put them on the test level or spec level, for example. Yeah, what about assertions? I've mentioned already that I'm a poet. I love writing poems. So especially with my Scala code, so I would go with the first way of writing code. So I would use RichDSL that provides many different assertions that are already built in. But I know guys who just want to make some basic assertions and compare whether the service or some API returns what they want. So from ZIO 2.0, it's also possible to go the second way and write it as we are all used to do. What if we communicate with some library that can show us exceptions? Yeah, we can also test the exception. We have the exception wrapped in ZIO.fail. We have just to run and again using DSL check if the message passed in that example is equal to what we expect. All right. Another thing quite important when it comes to unit test reporting. So this is how the ZIO reporting looks like when everything's all right, but we only really care about reporting when things go wrong. So ZIO Test provides you a really descriptive messages. So after you look at this, you're really able to find a problem in your code and yeah, basically fix that quite easily. Yeah, coming to the conclusion. ZIO Test, first of all, has an amazing community. So I think that what's really important in ZIO Test project is that the contributors and users they are They are talking to each other. They are, they are considering new features together. One group defines them, the other one implements them, and yeah, I think it's really awesome if you can, talk to the authors of the library, and they really take care of your opinion. The code is pretty well organized. You don't have to, put any magic implicits or things like that. You don't have to do this time. Yeah, many resources to learn from, and the number of talks and any blog posts and things like that is constantly growing. If you don't find anything that answers your question, you can always join Discord and yeah, have fun with pair programming or anything like that. Really easy to onboard because I know that some people would say that the best thing in ZIO Test is that you don't have to write your main code base in ZIO, and yeah, this is actually true because thanks to interop packages, ZIO Test is available to everyone. So no matter what kind of IO you use in your code base, you can always use ZIO and interop packages. Yeah, so I would highly encourage you to explore, have fun with ZIO Test project, as I did, and yeah, I really believe it's quite easy to to use and to play with. Some references that I have used while preparing this talk. So thanks Vim, Adam, Pavel, and yeah, documentation creators, and yeah, some special thanks to you who just spent your 20 minutes of your precious time listening to me. Yeah, thanks again to ZIO contributors and users, Sandra for making this happen, Adam for his talks on ZIO Test, John for driving the committee. What you did for the committee is really great, and yeah, sponsors of this conference. And yeah, last but not least, myself and Alex, we stay behind the project called Scala Jobs. So if you're looking for a new gig or basically want to start using ZIO or any other thing or any other specific library, there are plenty of opportunities out there. So yeah, if you have any questions, just please don't ask any right now. I truly won't be able to answer them, but you can. But you can chase me on some social channels.
Well, thank you so much. I think that was a fantastic talk, especially for someone who was their first time giving a talk, and in general, a fantastic talk. And I think it's also really a valuable perspective of, I think your level of knowledge is actually pretty good, but I think what you do bring is a little bit of the mind of someone newly coming to this, which I think is the mind of most people who, you're right, you're working on your project, you're developing your thing, and then you have to write tests for it. And I think your talk did a really good job of covering the things you need to know to actually get started, which I think can be hard for some of us who've been so deep into it that we've got it kind of in our head already. So I think it was fantastic there. Really want to open it up here. We've got a little bit of time, so if anyone has questions, this is the perfect time to ask your question about ZIO Test.
Oh, okay. Well, here, no, thank you. I did raise my hand. No, thank you. You guys are, by the way, amazing at the mic of everything. That was great. Thank you so much. I'm not going to ask you a question because you said you don't want one. So I'll make a comment instead. Can you go back to your jobs page? I like the subtle. There might be a subtle bias on the jobs. Can you go back a slide if it works? Where yes, I noticed in the little tags there, one of them looks cooler than the other ones. I don't know if that's on purpose, but anyway, I always appreciated that. Anyway, it's a lovely website. Do you want real questions?
Sorry?
Do you want questions? I don't need to attack you.
We can try with Adam's help.
Wait, I guess I'm curious just how. Do you have any things that you don't like about ZIO Test? Like, what was the struggle about? Obviously, you showed the type signature for aspect, which is a little scary.
What was what was a trap for me, especially at the beginning, was I think chaining assertions. So if you want your all assertions to be executed, you have to chain them, not only just describe them. So it was like a trap that I got cut a few times, but other parts not at all. Really enjoyed this, and yeah,
Awesome.
highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Have you tried the new assert true?
Not yet.
Okay, all right, something to try. Was there a question in the back there? It's getting his exercise for the day.
I have quite a few Scala tests. Is it a way that I could add new test as a ZIO test, meaning running parallel Scala tests and ZIO tests?
Personally, I've never done it, but I believe this is possible. Can't see anything against this.
Yeah, it actually kind of runs for you out of the box if you, there are a set of test frameworks that if you're running with like SBT are supported, and if you add a framework for ZIO Test and you already have one for Scala test built in, and if you just run tests that way, both sets of tests will run.
I like running. Anyone? I think we're good. Any on the internet?
I think we only have claps for you and other compliments that other people also thought you
right.
did an excellent talk. So
Thanks a lot.
congratulations.
Thanks for having
and
me.
We're very happy to have you here.